particular recording, let's go over, we basically gave people a list A and a list B. Can you guys help me out a little bit? What was going on here? Do you think your professor here had a hypothesis here? Yeah, I probably did. What do you think what is a hypothesis?
An educated guess of what you think is going to happen.
An educated guess so if you want to write for your notes, a hypothesis is kind of a scientifically based guess on what you think will happen when you do a study. So it's a hypothesis. It's an educated guess based on what should happen when you do a study. What do you think my hypothesis was for list A versus list B? Go ahead.
Which list could be read the fastest?
Yeah, I was kind of interested in which list would be read faster. And so what was your task? The online group will not know this, but what were the instructions that you were given here in the face-to-face class? What were you told to do?
Time the person to see how long it takes them to read their list.
So each read the list and basically time out how long it took to read out each particular list. What do you think my hypothesis was on which list should have been read quicker? And these are things you want to kind of write some notes on this. This will be important. Go ahead.
I would say most likely that list A was planned to be read quicker.
So the idea was list A we hypothesized that list A should have been read more quickly than list B. Do other people concur with that?
Yes.
Yes, the question is why? Why should that have been the case? Go ahead,
There were
Kate.
easier words on list A.
They were easier words. This was an experiment, and this is an important term to write down. This was an experiment on the word frequency effect. We were looking at the words on list A were of higher frequency than the words on list B. The words on list B, I was sitting in my house last night after a very long day, trying to come up with low frequency words. So list B was low frequency words. List A were more high frequency words. And so indeed that was my hypothesis. Was this, and if you want to write notes, this is an important thing to do, would you actually call this an experiment? Was actually running an experiment here?
No.
So you would say no. Why would you say no?
There wasn't really any sort of like control group or comparison really per se.
There wasn't necessarily a comparison per se between things. I had the low and the high, but maybe not a comparison. Okay, so that could be one part of what an experiment is about. Any other opinions about that? Go ahead.
An experiment usually determines causation, and this did not.
So causality is a big part. So when you do an experiment, there is causality. But when you do an experiment, anything else about doing an experiment? Anything else that, I saw some hands going up that.
Usually when you do an experiment, you're only changing one variable, but because we switched people between the lists, so you changed the person reading the list and the list they were given.
So I changed the person reading the list and what they were actually reading here.
There were multiple variables that we were manipulating and changing.
So is that necessarily the case? Were there multiple variables here? Was there an independent variable? Were there multiple levels of an independent variable? Was there a dependent variable here? Because if something is an experiment, you kind of need to have at least one independent variable and a dependent variable. So if you want to write this down, this is good stuff to know. You need to have an independent variable and a dependent. Sam, what are you thinking here? Did I have an independent variable here?
So your independent variables would be the list.
The type of list. So you would call, in this case, the independent variable was the word list. Now, if you have an independent variable of word list, you have to have levels. Did I have levels here? Brittany, what were my two levels?
List A and list B.
List A and B, but more specifically,
The high frequency words and the low frequency.
so we had a list of high frequency words and low frequency words. So we did have one independent variable It was kind of the word list high frequency for some and low frequency for others was kind of part of the equation here. Anything else that made this kind of an experimental protocol?
You can repeat the experiment.
You could probably repeat it and replicate the
Yeah.
results. What about the actual word lists themselves? Did I do anything systematically about the 2 sheets of paper?
I look like they had the same number of words.
Aha! Control. Very important. I had 15 words on both lists. Were they all in the same font?
Yes.
Yes, they were. And for a professor of 53 years old, I should have had my glasses on, but I didn't. But that was the way. So I actually did have, this was an experiment, I did have some control. Was there some things that maybe were not so well controlled though? This was kind of an experiment, but there were some things about how I ran it as the experimenter that might make you think maybe not.
Like Kate was saying, the person reading the word list.
Say again?
Going along with what Kate was saying earlier, who was reading the word list.
Yeah, who is reading the word list? But if you're going to test people, let's talk about the testing environment here. If you're going to test people in a true experiment, how should it have been probably done?
We all should have been in like the same space because you let us go to different spaces, which could have affected how fast we
Yeah, you should have all been kind of next to each other in a room here or a room there, but I just came up with this idea last night, so this is the best I could do given the situation involved here. So the environment that people were being tested in, was it different for everybody here? Were the instructions a little different? What instructions did I tell you before I gave you the list?
You told me to put the list down. You were going to look away, but with me, you had me close my eyes.
So I said, close your eyes, and when I said go open them, did people do different versions of that situation? So that was not very well controlled. So there were some aspects of this situation. Did it probably make a huge difference? Probably not a huge difference, and we just counted off seconds. Some of you counted off till the 10th or the 100th, as it would be. So there were some differences here. So it was not, the procedure was not systematic. The list, that was standardized. We had 15 words. How long did it take you to read them? We had a hypothesis. What about, besides an independent variable, what else would we want to have here? Dependent variable. Did I have a dependent variable here?
Yes.
What was my DV?
How long it took to read the words.
How long it took to read the words. How long did it take to actually read the words? And we collected data on everybody in that particular situation here. So we collected data. The question is, what would we do next? So we collected data, and I've got sheets here. What would we want to do with that situation?
We'd want to, sorry, Kate.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Go ahead.
You'd want to like analyze it to see if there's a major difference